Hey everyone, just want to take a couple minutes to walk you through how to build a very important tool that every social media marketer should have in their tool set. A social media content calendar, something that is critical to use if you're building out a social media program, certainly something you need to use if you're planning weekly content for your own social media program, or if you're building social media content for a client, something that I have to assume pretty much any social media marketer uses. Want to walk you through the steps of building a very simple one very quickly. There are several different types of content calendars you can build as a marketer, from a monthly editorial calendar or more of a planning style calendar, to the one I'm going to go over with you today, which is more of a weekly actual content calendar where you write out the content that you're planning to schedule for your social media program. So you can obviously Google and learn more about all the different types of calendars, but want to actually walk you through how to build out a calendar to actually write out and plan out the content you're going to be publishing for your social media program, and walk you through that today. So what I have here is a Google Sheet, and that would be my first recommendation for you, is to build out your social media content calendar in Google Sheets, as opposed to, say, in a Word document or in an Excel document. Google Sheets is just a very easy and accessible program. It's also very easy to share Google Sheets with other users. And more than likely, if you're building a content calendar, you're going to be sharing it with other colleagues in your organization, or perhaps with a client, or for the sake of my students, with me, if it's an assignment and I need to look at it and grade it. And rather than trying to put together the info in a Word doc and then emailing it back and forth with comments in it, you can create a Google Sheet, share access to it, and everyone that needs to hop in can hop in and make comments and make changes, and everyone can see it in real time. It's just much easier to do that. So that's my first recommendation. My second comment before I start getting into this is that every content calendar is going to look different. Really what you need to do is build in the information that you need or your organization needs to get the job done. So your content calendar may look different than my content calendar. They should all be unique based on what your social media program needs to succeed. So obviously this is just an example to show you what one may look like, but yours may certainly look different depending on what the needs of your social media program is. But more than likely, you're going to need to know the dates that a post is going to need to be scheduled. So that's probably something good to get started with. So what I'm doing here is, at the very top, outlining the different columns of information that I'm going to build out for each of my posts. So I'm starting with the date. The time is probably something else that's going to be important to know. Odds are you're going to have multiple social media networks that you're writing posts for, so probably want to lay that out. From here, there might be several different pieces of information that would be worth including. Maybe specific goals or campaigns that you're writing posts for. Maybe you've outlined in your social media strategy specific goals you're working towards, or again, a campaign or multiple campaigns that you're running simultaneously throughout your various social media networks. So maybe you have a campaign category or a goal category. Maybe you have specific personas that you write content for, and you want to include those as well. That would certainly be good to include. Or maybe content type. Maybe you have specific content types you always try to include, so you want to make sure you include that. For the purposes of mine, I'm going to include persona. I think it's always important to make sure you have personas set for your marketing efforts, and you're always trying to make sure you meet those personas with what you're doing. Next, the actual post itself, what you're actually going to be writing. It's one of the main reasons you build the content calendar, so always want to make sure you include that. My students will know I always emphasize the importance of visuals and media in any social media post, obviously in something like Instagram or TikTok, but even on platforms like Twitter and Facebook at this point, there's got to be visuals if the post is going to perform well. So you want to make sure you plan that out ahead of time so you're not scrambling to get that done the day of the post. If a link is applicable to the post, you want to make sure you include that in here. And then at the end, I always make sure I leave a field for comments, especially if you're writing posts for a client and you're sharing this with a client. This is a good place for them to leave comments if they have any about what you're writing. So you can then see if they, want something changed or if they have a specific opinion about what you've done. That's just always a good habit to get into. But there you have kind of all the fields laid out, and you can then start populating the content calendar with what you're going to be writing for the week or for the month or however long you're going to be building out for. So then you just start doing that. So let's say I'm planning things out for next week. So I'll just get started with a couple posts here. Hopefully I know what times are the best times to publish content on my various networks. Whoops. So I'll go ahead and get started with that, and I'll just get a few going here. There are a couple different ways you could add in new media. You could always just link to something if you have it saved somewhere, or maybe you built something on Canva and you just want to link to that, or you could always just actually upload it like I just did into the cell. That way, you could always reference it, or if someone else is going to be actually posting it, they actually have a visual and they know what your intention is. And then link to something if you have a link, so it's right in there and you can pull it out. And then you just do that for all of your posts. You go down the list here and actually build it out. One other thing I'd recommend doing, just for the sake of organization, is rather than, continually building your posts out in one sheet here, that can get rather long, building weeks and weeks and weeks of posts here, is that if you're doing weekly content, build out the various weeks in different sheets here, in different tabs. That keeps things organized, and that also allows you to go back to previous weeks to see what you've written in the past. For whatever reason you may need to do that. That just helps keeps things organized and keeps things a little more concise and clear. Once you have things built, again, the great thing about Google Sheets is you can obviously go up to share and share the sheet with anyone you need to in your organization or with a client, or again, in the case of my students, sharing it with me if you need to submit it for class. And you can share it with someone via email. So let's say I want to share it with Wilkie. I can do that. Or let's say you want to share with the link. You can do that as well. So make sure anyone with the link can view. You don't want it to be restricted. And in this case, I would recommend you make the role either commenter or editor, so that they can either leave comments or they can actually edit the document, which would be good, and then copy the link and paste it into something like Basecamp or Monday.com if you're using a platform like that, or in the case of my students, pasting it into Canvas so that it can be graded. That's what you would want to do there. And one final thing, the great thing about then having all your posts laid out in a platform like this, in a document like this, is that if you're using a scheduling platform, a social media management platform like, say, Buffer or Hootsuite or what have you, is that you have your content laid out for the week. So when you're ready to schedule your content, you can just take what you have ready to go, head into your Buffer or your Hootsuite or what have you, and schedule your content. It's all ready to go. You can create your post and just post it in and schedule it. It makes it much easier than trying to just come up with things on the fly every day when you're ready to post. It's far more strategic. It gives you the time to plan out how you're actually going to achieve the goals that you've set for your social media marketing program. It's just a much better way to go about doing social media marketing. So certainly a great tool For social media, certainly a great way to approach your social media program. And again, very easy to build with no money, tools you have at your disposal. A really great tool to have in your arsenal.